Welcome back to the channel. It is 11 September 2025. GenX trader here with my daily trade review, but I'm going to do something a little bit different today. As you can see, my daily P&L there is not looking good. This morning I took a few trades this morning, but one of them I screwed up on. And I was looking at one of the screens. I use a 5-second screen on to my left, and then my main screen, which has like a 1 minute, 5 minute, and 15 minute or 1 hour, depending on what's going on with the stock. And it also has my orders. So I was looking at my 5-second screen to the left, and I was going to take an order, and I took an order on the wrong stock. So it was, and that the stock that I took shares of basically tanked, and I shouldn't have taken the trade on the actual stock that I took the trade on, and it was tanking, and I just got it. I just threw the whole thing in the trash, basically. So on that trade, I lost 16%. And I did take a couple of trades after that, but honestly, I couldn't. It kind of shook me for the rest of the morning. And I think I had one or two trades left. I kind of changed my game plan this week. I split up my uh, account. I had previously split my account up into thirds so I could take 3 trades, and I decided to change that this week so I could have more trades. So, but that's besides the point. So, my accuracy today was okay, but P&L, the loss that I took because of that mistake that I made was terrible. I think that loss accounted for probably the last 2 weeks of gains that I made. So, is what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to come to the desk in the morning. I'll be at the desk at 7 o'clock Eastern. So I'll be up at 4 o'clock so I can get to my desk at 5 a.m. local. And I'm not really going to be in the markets. I might watch them, but I just need to do a deep dive into my account. I'm going to take a no trades day. And I have a few rules, I guess you could say, that I'm actually going to write them down. So that I can see them and have them, and a couple of things that I'm going to change. So it'll be kind of like my strategy, but more like on the risk management side, so that this type of error doesn't occur again. And so there's things that I can do if I just use all the charts on one monitor, so that the active trader where I take my orders at on Thinkorswim is on the same screen, but I might have to think about how I change that a little bit so that my 5-second charts aren't on a separate screen. So I'll attack that tomorrow. I just need to kind of dive into that and examine how I'm doing things in the morning. But I did take a few trades. They were green trades. And so I think my accuracy is still pretty good. I think it's around 60%. That's just my daily accuracy there. That's 60% on the day based on number of trades. But I think overall, by the week or month, I'm 60% or maybe even better. But my P&L is not looking good. I think for the month, I'm down 11% now. And that's not good. And so I was debating on what I was going to do. Put myself in a trader timeout, but I didn't want to be away from the desk because I want to maintain the habit of being up and at the desk in the morning. So I decided that I was going to come to the desk, be around, my regular schedule, so that I don't kind of lose that. But I'm just going to come up with a written plan to kind of set my strategy and trade the risk management. It's kind of set it in stone a little bit, so it's all written down. And I have my, I have the actually the strategy that I use written. It's Ross Cameron's 5 pillars of stock selection, which he talks about often, or his momentum strategy, depending on what day of the week you catch him. But um, and that's basically 5 points, and I use that every single morning. But I kind of, for my own self, I kind of whittled it down a little bit better. Not well, I wouldn't say better, but I whittled it down to um, more for how what works for me a little bit. And so when I get to in the morning, when I start looking at the screeners, is what I'm doing is I just I kind of have this all in my head now. But first thing I do is look for stocks that are up 10% on the day, and the screener will list those, the stocks that are gapped 10% or better. And most of the time, it's 25% or better. Some are 50 or 100, and last week there was one. It wasn't first thing in the morning, but there was a stock that went up like 5,000% over the day. Um, But I look for stocks that are up 10% on the day since the previous close of the previous day. Um, and then the second thing I look for is a high relative volume. So, I'll look at the average volume, which I think is a 200 day or a 90 day. I don't know what the average volume time frame is. Um, but compared to the volume of the last 24 hours. And so I'm looking for a high relative volume of at least 2.0. So, if the average volume is 1 million, the current volume, I'm looking for like 2 million or more. Um, and so it's pretty easy to find. The screener will show you that. Um, for share prices, it's pretty common for Ross to look for stocks between $2 and $20. My preference is $2 to $5. That's kind of what I prefer. Um, Over $5, and especially anything over $10, your the amount of position of shares that you can buy in a stock is reduced significantly the higher the share price is. So if you have $100 available, if you buy a stock that's $2, you can get 50 shares of it. But if it's a $20 stock, you can only buy 5, and so it really affects your profits. You can still have a green or a red day, but you can still have your a high accuracy, but the actual increase of profits is minimized the higher the stock is. So anyway, that's me. I kind of look for $2 to $5, and then also let's see. The fourth thing that he looks for that I look for is a relatively low float of like 20 million or less. Sometimes I'm not real. I don't necessarily stick to that as a hard rule. So sometimes I'll maybe look up to like 50 million float. Um, but and that it depends on how active the market is in the morning. Um, and also he lists news as a catalyst, and although I do pay attention to the news, it generally is what happens is you might have the news set up in a corner of your window somewhere next to one of the charts, but if I'm not looking at the news. I'm looking at either the level 2 or the charts or the screener. It'll show you the numbers changing on there. Um, so I'm looking for the numbers or the chart or the candlesticks on the screen changing. The news may or may not change that, but if news pops up, it's just, to me, it's not. I don't look at the news necessarily. I might, if something is popping and I notice that there's no news on it, it might make me think twice about it. Or if I notice that a stock has news come out and the stock is not affected by it, I might think twice about it, or I might read what that news report has to say. I might look into it a little bit more. But generally, I don't look at the news as a primary source of this strategy. Um, and there's other things. I have a couple of indicators. I use the MACD all the time, um, and VWAP, and then I recently added the EMAs, the 9, the 20, and the 200. But I'm kind of conflicted about that. I don't necessarily want a whole bunch of stuff going on the screen, especially if I have like 4 or 6 different charts that I'm looking at, and I don't want any additional indicators. So I'm still kind of playing with that. I'd like to reduce it. I don't want a bunch of indicators, 1 or 2 maybe, but I really don't want a whole bunch of indicators and lines and stuff. And, if I'm looking at a stock that I'm going to take a trade in, I'll actually I'll add the lines, the price line of where I buy in and then my target price and my stop out. Um, I'll put that on the screen if the stock doesn't, you know, hit my target immediately. But it just kind of gives me a visual. Um, so anyway, that's just the strategy I use, but I do need to add a couple of things to that. I'll have to rewrite that, just add a few things, and um, maybe the way I do charting, um, so that I can't have that conflict if I'm looking at a 5-second chart on one screen, and then I have the 1 and the 5-minute chart on another screen with my active trader taking orders and me looking across 2 different screens. So I have to figure that out. I've got to think about that a little bit. So I'll write a few things out and some thoughts on that, and I'm going to figure that stuff out in the morning. But so for me, I do need to take a time out to make sure that my head is right, um, so that I can kind of reset and go into the weekend neutral and not, with another potential. I cannot take another day of 16% loss. Like that I don't know what I would do. I'd have to take the week off or something. I don't know. Um, so that's my plan for tomorrow. And, just hit the ground running on Monday, I guess. So, a little bit different one today. And I hope that was helpful for you to some degree. And see you on the next one.